Welcome to the Ramblers Late Night Stories. For all who cannot sleep and want to deep dive into horror late at night. Who's in my bed? Father went to say goodnight to his 7-year-old son. Very well known, knowing that if he didn't see his son, would have trouble sleeping. It was a nightly routine between them, all fun like usual. He entered the dimly lit room where his son waited under his blanket. With the first glance, the father could tell there was something unusual about his son that night, but couldn't put his finger on it. He looked the same, but had a grin that drew from ear to ear, like a fucking clown, he thought. "You okay, buddy?" the father asked. The son nodded, still with a grin, before saying, "Daddy, check for monsters under my bed." The dad thought, "You little scary little shit." The father chuckled a bit before getting on his knees to check, only to satisfy his son and make sure his little badass went to sleep that night. There under the bed, pale and afraid, was his son. But it was his real son. He whispered, "Daddy, there's someone on my bed." The cabin. The hiker decided to go on a hike by himself, something he was not very used to. Trying to get out of his comfort zone. The whole day was normal like usual. Trees and bushes engulfed his surroundings. He enjoyed being outdoors in the mountains, free, full of society's demands. Nothing seemed strange to him. That was until he was making his way back to his car. He figured an 8-hour hike was good enough. The sky was already getting dark and he needed to get back fast. What was odd was how much he didn't recognize the trail back. He began to panic. Night had already taken over in a half and all he had was a flashlight and no clue on how to get back. He knew it was already too late and too dangerous to keep going through the perilous forest. He began to worry that he would have no shelter for that night when, almost lucky enough, he stumbled across a broken down cabin. It was dark and sinister. Seemed like no one had visited in years, but he knew it was the only place where he could rest until daylight. Especially since his flashlight was running out of battery. He knocked on the door a few times. No one answered. So he let himself in where, strangely enough, a perfect bed fitted for one person awaited him in the center. He knew if that owner came back, he could explain himself. He was sure that the owner wouldn't mind. He was probably even dead. So he went ahead and got himself comfortable in bed. As he tried to sleep, he couldn't ignore the collection of paintings around the room. Portraits of strange-looking people, all peering at him. Each wearing a smile that sent chills up his spine. Not too long after his exhaustion from the hike got the best of him, he was able to ignore the faces. The next morning, he got up early and was shocked to see there was no paintings around the room but windows. A doctor was working at a hospital one day, a hospital where the patients were tagged with colored bands. Green meaning alive and red meaning deceased. One night the doctor was instructed to get a few supplies from the basement of the hospital. So he headed to the lift. The lift doors were open and there was a patient inside, minding her own business. Not strange, the doctor was thinking, just a typical patient. As we all try to go through society and just mind our business, not anything strange at all, the doctor was thinking. Patients were allowed to roam around the hospital to stretch, especially those who have stayed long and were on their best behavior. But the rule was to be back in the room before 10. The doctor smiled at the patient. Hey, how's it going? Before pressing the number for the basement. But he found it unusual that the woman didn't have a button already pressed. He wondered if she was heading to the basement as well. The lift finally reached the floor where the doors were open. In the distance, a man was limping towards the elevator. And in panic, the doctor slammed the door, but it closed. And finally did, and the lift began to extend back up when the doctor's heart was pounding. Why did you do that? He was just trying to use the lift, the woman stated, annoyed. Did you see his wrist? The doctor asked. If it was red, he died last night. I would know because I did the surgery. That's when the woman looked at her wrist and he saw red. And she smiled. Like this one.